All right. We are live. Welcome in, everybody. I hope everybody is doing great today. We have a ton to talk about. I'm just going to go ahead and retweet my live stream and then we will get right into it. Let's see. Where do we got people from here today? Costa Rica. Nice. I'm only here for the pockets. I actually don't think that there's that many pockets anymore, surprisingly. There are a few, but not a bunch. And then Latvian from Moscow here. Nice, man. Welcome in, everybody. It's good to see people in here today. Like I said, I'm just going to retweet my live stream and then we'll get right into it. All right. Done and done. Let's see. Hello from Charleston, South Carolina, UK, Florida, Libya. I do wonder if sometimes you guys are actually from these places or you just say it, but hello from France, hello from Germany, New Mexico, Long Island, New York, Wales, Boston, Massachusetts, Copenhagen, Rotterdam, Netherlands. Sorry, chat's moving fast. Switzerland, Sacramento, Macedonia, South Carolina again, Berlin, Slovenia, Tallahassee, Jamrock. Don't know what that is, but that sounds like a place where you could get a really nice PB&J sandwich and listen to some 80s rock. Let's see. Indiana Oblast. That's funny. That's a funny one. Albania. Nice. Don't sell Libya short. I'm not selling Libya short. I'm not. I just don't know how good the internet is in Libya regularly. That would be just my primary concern there. Jamaica, Miami. All right, guys. I'll let you guys keep putting them in. I might get back to them in just a second. Welcome everybody in. This is episode 123 of the Kalibrated live show with Scott. I am, of course, that person, Scott. Thank you all for joining me today. We have quite a bit to talk about. First and foremost, let's all give it up for the Kansas City Chiefs. If you're an Ameribro, you know football. That's my team. Going for the three-peat. Love it. And all of the hate, it just makes it so much better. So that was a fun thing we did this weekend. What else happened? Anything else pop culture-y or anything like that? I don't know. I can't even think of anything. Yeah, you boo Chiefs, whatever, man. Just hate us because you're not winning. Sorry about it. Yeah, but we have a ton of frontline updates that we are going to get into today. We have some reports from Ukrainian sources that we're also going to talk about today. We have a few articles that we're going to go over, and we're going to talk about what's coming up next. But as you guys can tell, the title of today's episode is 3 Cities Captured. And that is because today we have confirmation of the capture of 2 cities that the Ukrainians were struggling to maintain, the Russians were capturing, and then a 3rd city that is very nearly captured, and we are going to talk about that one today. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right into it. You know, Americans know nothing about real sport. Well, I played European football for like 14 years, so I'm pretty sure I know something about real sport, but all right, here we go. Over to the old Maparoo. Okay, so we have quite a few updates today. We'll always start up in the Kursk region. No major updates here. There are some reports that the Russians have pushed down into some of these areas right here, but nothing to map yet. This is still just an area that is just horrible for the Ukrainians. Again, I said this a couple months ago, and this is literally how the Ukrainians ran the Cranky operation. This is the exact same thing. It makes no sense. It continues for far too long. It achieves no military objectives and just wastes human resources and equipment. I don't know why the Ukrainians are still doing this. Again, not achieving anything. The territory controlled has shrunk significantly. The Ukrainians do not enjoy air defense in this area. They don't really enjoy air defense in most areas, but this area in particular, as it is into Russia proper, rear positions get hit here constantly. So I would not close this if I was the Russians. This is just bleeding the Ukrainians. It's literally just an open, festering wound. Meanwhile, the Ukrainians are losing their actual defensive lines in the east and cities in Ukraine. So by all means, try to maintain this Kursk operation. If I'm the Russians right now, I'm looking at this like, why not? Basically, it is sort of the situation, because they have one road. It's very tight. It's covered with drones, artillery, missile strikes happen back here constantly, back over in Sumy in this area. So this is just, again, it's just a pit. And the Ukrainians are just going to continue holding this for as long as they possibly can. I don't think the Russians are pushing very significantly here, because the Ukrainians continue reinforcing this small pocket. So this is an actual pocket that the Ukrainians are trying to keep open. All right, moving down to Vovchansk region in Kharkov, no updates here, but we do have some updates for the Kharkov region. So we will head over to the Oskil River, and the crossing of the Oskil River here by the Russians has again expanded. One of the expansions is into this forest plantation north of the R79 highway and north of Zapadne, which again is north of Kupiansk. This is just widening this bridgehead, making Russian movement across the river easier, and pushing the Ukrainians back deeper into the Kharkov region away from the Oskil River. That will eventually open up Kupiansk to being surrounded from the north and from the west. And then this pocket will close, and then the pressure will mount on Kupiansk from this front. I cannot believe this is still open. And I say this every single time I feel like I do a live stream. Just like with Kursk, there is no reason that the Ukrainians should be holding this territory right here currently. It makes no sense. The Russians are across the river. This whole thing is going to be compromised, and then there's going to be another route retreat out of this area that is going to cost Ukrainians even more significant manpower casualties, and it just doesn't make any sense. I don't get what the goal is. There's no PR even really being gained from this, so it's not like Kursk where there's a tension on it. This is just holding this, and maybe there's a tactical situation on the ground that I don't quite understand. Potentially they think that if they lose this, Kupiansk is lost, and then they're going to have to pull back even further. I don't know, but the Oskil River seems like a place that could be defended for some amount of time, just as it was up here for quite some time. But now this whole area is just becoming worse and worse for the Ukrainians. And it's just another area that is beginning to really mount pressure on the AFU in Ukraine. To the north of Zapadne here, Russian forces have completed the capture of Didvarki, which is Dobrivka, Devarshina, Shuahinivka, Kripchiny, and Ravoko. Some crazy town names there, but it is what it is. And this is going to set up the Russians in a better position to begin operations into the Kharkov region. These advances right here now make me believe that the Kharkov region will be annexed by the Russians eventually, along with the Donetsk Oblast, the Zaporozhye Oblast, potentially the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. We'll have to see how that all, plays out, really, because we don't know if the Russians are going to cross here from Udachny area into the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. If they do, that basically will tell you that the Russians are going to go for everything on this side of the river. Poltava, Polvarha, Dnipro, Zaporozhye, Kharkov, all of these places will eventually be captured, barring some sort of immediate stop to the conflict and negotiations or whatever. Don't think it's going to happen. I don't see how negotiations are going forward. Again, there has really been absolutely no movement since this new administration has come in. Nothing has changed. And I told you guys this before the election. It doesn't matter who's president, because U.S. foreign policy is dictated by U.S. interests, not by who is in the president's office. Now, how they might go about certain things might change, but the general consensus is going to be the same. There are geostrategic interests that the U.S. must maintain. And just because somebody made a mistake, say this proxy war isn't going the way Trump wants or Biden administration wanted it to, Trump didn't start it, but he's inherited it. So it might not be going the way he wants. He might not want it at all. But realistically, he can't just dump this. He can't just get rid of it. It's too important for that. And hold on. And I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Shit. Oh, Trump. He might want to end the conflict, but like I said, the U.S. has financial interests, they have geostrategic interests that all play into this, and just backing away from it could do significantly more damage to the Trump administration going forward and the US going forward than just continuing with it, even if Trump wants it to end and he has a 100-day plan or whatever. It's kind of nonsense, but I don't expect this conflict to end anytime soon. I don't think that the positions are even remotely close. And like I've said, I think that you are going to need regime change in either Moscow or Kiev before you're actually going to see anything significant happen. And I don't see that happening anytime soon. I could be totally wrong. The conflict could just wrap up tomorrow. But, the Russian Foreign Ministry has come out and said that they basically see no attempt by the West to actually negotiate or communicate with Russia. The West tends to do this, where they will negotiate with themselves and then come and talk to Russia and basically give them the demands and what they've all negotiated about. And then Russia is either going to accept that or deny that. And right now, those two positions, like I said, are just miles apart. So I don't see negotiations happening. Could be wrong. I would like negotiations to happen, but we will see. All right, down here in the Luhansk Oblast, Russian forces have advanced and captured the small little stretch of trees right here. There's like a couple houses, not really a village, but they have names of Trevdor Kilobrove and Novo Inorivka. Okay, so those are pretty crazy names as well for villages, but again, just some small movement here in the I would call it the Oskel River region right here. Right, moving down to Suversk, no updates in this area. Moving down to Chasiv Yar. So Chasiv Yar has seen two major updates in the past couple of days, hours, I would say. I mean, days, yeah. This one happened in the last hour. This one happened yesterday or so. But as you can see, the Russians have advanced into the line of residential apartment buildings right here outside of the factory. So they have progressed out of the factory into this residential area. And now most of this area is in the gray zone, with the Russians continuing to push out using the the industrial plant here as a staging position to continue assaults into the city. And then down here, this large forested area, which you can see has some military structure. There's a bunker here, apparently. I don't know if that's this. It kind of looks like it right here. But they said that there's a big bunker in this area. That does look like it. And then a bunch of trench fortifications. You can see right here that it's very cut in. This is a massive fortified area throughout this entire section of the forest. So the Russians have now captured that forested area fortification. And that is basically the end of the Battle of Chasiv Yar proper. We continue to see this as soon as this plays out. This is the end of Chasiv Yar. And then into Mykolivka and Stopochki down here. Now, I still consider Mykolivka and Stopochki kind of part of Chasiv Yar, but in terms of the actual battle for Chasiv Yar, it is about wrapped up. All right, Moving down to Toretsk. This is a city that has now been fully captured. We have reports that the Russians have captured the rest of this industrial area and this Telecom. I have not updated this yet just because we don't have a geolocation for this. And then technically this is not part of Toretsk, but this is also all in the gray zone. There is reportedly no Ukrainian positions being held within the city of Toretsk any longer. So the battle for Toretsk has come to a close, and now the battles for the villages outside of Konstantinivka will begin. Quite small, nothing substantial here, and then the Russians will get into Konstantinivka likely at the same time as they reach it from the Chasiv Yar region, and as they reach it coming up the highway right here, the 0504. Towards Konstantinivka. So I think that Konstantinivka is really going to be this sort of, it's going to be this area where all of the Russian advances are just going to kind of accumulate, and then the push for Konstantinivka will begin. And that's just going to come. This area is going to fall probably rather quickly after Toretsk is fully captured. So yeah, a lot of movement here. The Russians seem to be activating heavily in this region in an attempt to really begin to put pressure on Konstantinivka. All right, moving down to the Pokrovsk-Minhorod front, we have further Russian advances to the west of Pokrovsk, and this is becoming really, really bad over here now. They have fully evacuated Minhorod and Pokrovsk. There is fully evacuated, meaning that anybody who was willing to leave, who wanted to leave, has been able to leave, civilians and otherwise, not military, obviously. These are now just full military cities. Like the military just controls these, and there's FPVs flying around, artillery's landing, glide bombs land constantly. This area is very, very hot now. And as you can see, the Russians have continued to advance towards the E50 here, which is one of the vital logistics lines into Pokrovsk, along with the line from the north now. And advancing out of Kotelin, we talked about how this mine facility here was going to act as a jumping off point. We should see Russian expansion into these fielded areas right here. And the fortifications back here, guys, are practically non-existent. So in terms of Ukrainian defense, it's going to be very difficult for the Ukrainians to hold anything with absolutely no fortifications prepared in this region. All right, another advance out of Kotelin towards Udachny here, just sort of closing this little gap and advancing towards this coal mine up here to the north. All right, and now in the Udachny area, Russian forces have advanced in between Udachny and Uspenivka up to this small lake right here, pond. I don't know what you would really call it. How far across is it? Half a mile? So like a kilometer across. Is that a lake or is that a pond? I think that would be called a pond in most places. But Russian forces have advanced and are now close to capturing all of Udachny. Most of it is in the gray zone and are less than 4 kilometers from Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. So they're quickly approaching it. Remember a couple weeks ago when they were 14 kilometers away, and then they were 7 kilometers away, and now they're less than 3 or less than 4. So Russians are moving very quickly in this direction, and this entire region back here is pretty compromised in terms of Ukrainian defense. This area is very strong. You can see the defensive fortifications here. This area is not defended hardly at all. All right, to the south of Uspenivka, just a small Russian advance, kind of leveling out the front. To the south here, Russian forces have captured Nadivka. This is, again, just another advance in that pocket that I talked about here. I'll put it up for you guys, where the Russians are planning to advance out, and then up here to Hryshny. So we have both of these playing out kind of exactly how I suspected. The Russians have breached the green line where I talked about Ukrainian troops should retreat to. That has now been captured by the Russians, so They're in that next line. This is not an actual defense line. This is just the line that I put up to show where I thought the Ukrainians should retreat. And it's making a lot of sense because they're about to lose Andrivka. They're about to have this pocket close around Kharkove, and Velyka Novosilka has been fully captured. So the situation here is getting worse and worse and worse in southern Donetsk, and it's just going to continue to escalate. It's not going to get better. And I don't see the way that the Ukrainians really get out of the position that they're in. It's not looking very good at all. All right. Here west of Petropavlivka, Russian forces have advanced along this fortification, which I talked about. We talked about these fortifications being captured just to the east of Andrivka, and I said no more progress will come in this direction until the Russians capture and progress through the fortification to the north. That has happened. The Russians are now in Andrivka. And there are reports that they have pushed deeper into the center of the city. So most of this area will likely be claimed Russian territory very soon, as well as to the north here. This area will also likely be capped by the Russians this week, I would imagine. So look for the rest of this fortification to be captured and then Andrivka to fall probably rather quickly, as there is almost no structure in this entire town to defend from. And then obviously it's separated by the Vovocha River here. So these areas are kind of isolated and cut off from Andrivka, just in terms of, needing to cross this decently wide river. All right, just a small Russian advance here in the Kharkove pocket into Deshane. Again, there's a large fortification in this area right here that the Russians are going to need to capture before the rest of this pocket entirely closes. All right, and then for our final update for the day, Russian forces have closed this pocket down here. I'm actually going to delete this one right now. This was the encirclement. I have seen a lot of bad videos come out of encirclements that the Ukrainians have found themselves in, and battles in cities that went very poorly for the Ukrainians. But Velyka Novosilka was kind of a different level. I saw probably 4 striking videos. One was a house that was just littered with Ukrainian bodies. It looked like a wounded depository where, they bring all the wounded and kind of keep them there. And it's like a field hospital, if you will, but just in a house. Probably not a lot of hospitaling going on, but they are gathering these individuals, and then the Russians are in there and all of the guys are dead. They have like missing legs, bad wounds from different drops, grenade drops and stuff like that, artillery. And it was probably 20, 25 people in this room that were dead. And so that was one video that's on my Telegram. Another video was the guys who attempted to leave this encirclement and this area and cross the Morkyali River here. There were bodies just kind of all throughout this river. I saw a couple different posts of bodies just floating in the water, not particularly good. And then additionally, I've seen a number of videos of just entire squads, it looks like, smaller than a platoon, 8 to 10 guys that were just completely wiped out trying to escape from Velyka Novosilka. So Velyka Novosilka was horrible. I think it was one of the worst encirclements that we've seen in terms of Ukrainian casualties and just neglect of the soldiers. They should have retreated a couple weeks before Vermika was captured and stuff. But, the Ukrainians are not going to retreat from anywhere, and they would rather sacrifice men to maintain a position for a couple more weeks than pull those men out and have them live to fight another day. I disagree with that line of thinking, especially when you're already suffering from massive manpower issues. All right. I'm going to delete this lower encirclement right here. Okay. All right. That is it for my updates today, guys. Thank you so much for listening to that little spiel. If you guys have questions, you can go ahead and start getting some questions in. I am always up to answer some questions. But first and foremost, let me take you guys over to my article that I wanted to read. So this is part of what I was talking about with negotiations. So this comes from Politico, from the White House. Europe is cautiously optimistic about Trump's Ukraine comments. The new president is eager to strike a deal on Ukraine. Greenland and tariffs are causing more heartburn. Donald Trump wasted no time in rattling Europeans' nerves over threats of taking Greenland and opening trade wars, but there's a surprising case in which Europe is cautiously optimistic: Ukraine. Trump's threat to Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday to impose new tariffs and sanctions on Moscow if they did not reach a deal to stop the war sent a welcome message to European allies and other Ukraine supporters. And it is being read more broadly by Ukraine supporters as evidence that he understands the stakes of the war as they do and will not abandon Ukraine or NATO allies in his coming dealings with Putin. The President Trump that served alongside the President Trump that I served alongside wants nothing to do with the perception of weakness. Nothing. Former Vice President Mike Pence told a small group of reporters on Friday. Pence didn't say how recently he had spoken with Trump. Yeah, because why would they be speaking? They don't get along. But outside of that, you can see that Trump, while making statements about ending the war, really what he's going to do is what America always does. We're going to try to bully. We're going to try to force another country into doing something that they don't necessarily want to do. And we're going to do so by making threats. Instead of just coming to the negotiating deal and actually solving the issue, actually coming to a resolution, how we're going to go about that is by, again, threatening further economic warfare against the country that has been under our economic warfare for 3 years. Not only is there no new additional tariffs to levy and sanctions to put on Russia, I mean, they can make stuff up. It's not going to have any impact on the Russian economy in the way that they want it to. We're far beyond that. We are way past that point, and Russia is in no dire position to negotiate. They have no need to negotiate. Negotiations only come for Russia when they serve Russian purposes, right? And I'm gonna show you some quotes from some Ukrainian armed forces soldiers talking about the situation, talking about what they're about to do and what they're going to go into, and the manpower situation. Again, I've quoted these before. I mean, different ones, but we're getting so many stories at this point. The evidence is almost insurmountable to come back from. So we'll get into that here in just a second. Let me look at these questions. Where are we going from Velyka Novosilka northwest? I'll talk about that in just a second. Do you think the Russians will take Kupiansk, NAFO's source of copium? Yes, I think that's going to happen very soon. I think that Kupiansk is almost compromised already as is. All right. So let me just go over to those articles on Twitter so that I can show you guys what I'm talking about here. And these are all from Rob Lee, a guy who is rather pro-Ukrainian. So I'm not just pulling these off of some Russian nobody. Or something like that. This is a statement about the Air Force. So uninterrupted by the public attention that condemned, quote, a wasteful use of specialist troops, the Air Force leadership, obeying the high military command's orders, is set to continue sending more of its men to infantry in waves. According to 3 different servicemen who spoke on the condition of anonymity, one Air Force officer confirmed that the transfer would continue due to poor mobilization results, but said that he could not officially reveal the figure due to the topic's sensitivity. Such transfers can have detrimental effects, he added, with some specialized troops, for example, providing aviation engineering services, supplying oxygen to aircrafts, and replacing batteries. There you go. So, I mean, literally pulling people that are working on aircraft to have more meat in a trench. That's how bad the situation is. That's abysmal. And you know when they say we can't tell you because we It might have security implications. That means that they're sending a lot of dudes. They would not say that if there was, they would just tell you exactly the low number of men they sent. Oh, it was only 100. It was only this. It was only that. They weren't being used in any way. So we transferred them. No, this is a serious transfer of manpower from one section of the military, the Air Force, to the infantry section of the military, either the Navy or the Army. So you're really looking at a absolutely abysmal manpower situation, and nothing is going to remedy this. They're talking about lowering the conscription age from 25 to 18. We'll see if that happens. I wouldn't doubt that it happens, but it's not going to solve the issues. And here's another one. The Russian tactics are not dynamic, but they are causing Ukraine no end of bother. Put simply, Russia has the infantry and Ukraine does not. Issues with mobilization and desertion have hit Ukraine's reserves hard. We struggle to replace our battlefield losses. You only have 91,000. You guys are fine. Trust me, says Colonel Pavlo Fedosnenko, the commander of a Ukrainian tactical grouping in the Donbass. They might throw a battalion's worth of soldiers at a position we've manned with 4 or 5 soldiers. The brigades that make up the Donbass front line are consistently understaffed, under pressure, and cracking. The front line keeps creeping back. We no longer have the tactics beyond plugging holes. Says Kupel, the nom de guerre of a narrow retired commander. I don't know what that, I've never read that before. So sorry, I'm illiterate and uncultured, who up until September led a brigade fighting in eastern Donbass. We throw battalions into the chaotic mess and hope we can somehow stop the grind. So again, a little cope there, saying that the Russians, the Russian tactics are not dynamic. Okay, whatever. I don't even know what that means. What do you mean? You're losing territory to a Russian army that has improved their drone capabilities, has left a BTG style command structure, has really transformed their military quite substantially, has got rid of a lot of the really bad generals at the beginning that were doing some pretty regrettable and ignorant actions. And now the Russian army continues to get stronger. The Ukrainian army is being degraded by their own words. This is not my words. These are the words of people in the Ukrainian army, commanders in the Donbass, that are talking about the only ability that they have now is plugging holes, which means taking men from the Air Force and throwing them into infantry roles. Not really very good use of manpower. So that is another one here, and then I have one more right here. This is separate, but this is something that I also wanted to talk about. I feel like I've hit on the Ukrainian manpower issues long enough. An undersea fiber optic cable between Latvia and Sweden was damaged on Sunday, likely as a result of external influence, Latvia said, prompting NATO to deploy patrol ships to the area and triggering a sabotage investigation by Swedish authorities. Holy shit! Apparently, when somebody else cuts their cables and destroys their infrastructure, then they want to do full-on investigations and it's immediate and right away. But when, Germany's energy infrastructure gets absolutely imploded on under NATO waters, we're not going to really rush to get into any investigation. It's goofy. It's goofy. But Sweden's security service has seized control of a vessel as part of the probe, the country's prosecution authorities say. We are now carrying out a number of concrete investigative matters, but I cannot go into what they consist of due to the ongoing preliminary investigation, Senior Prosecutor Matt, whatever that name is, said in a statement. This is what happens when you with a country, a superpower's infrastructure. You're gonna FAFO, and this is what happens. You're talking about hybrid warfare, right? You give somebody missiles, you give somebody 1.2 billion in drone development. I think it was 1.5 billion in drone development funds to strike Russian energy infrastructure. Guess what's going to happen? they're going to get you back in some way, and it's going to take time, and it's going to hurt later. And these things are going to continue to happen as long as this war goes on. And it's the outrage from Western pundits about this action was incredibly hysterical to me, when we are actively funding Ukraine's ability to strike infrastructure inside of Russia. Just the hypocrisy and the complete lack of self-awareness is so unbelievable. Sometimes I don't feel like a human, and because these people are also human, and I don't understand how somebody could be so narrow-minded and thick in the skull. But that's where we're at. All right. Go ahead and ask some questions, guys. I'm kind of done. I was going to show that one individual who asked a question about Velyka. Let's see, who was it? It was Peter. Where are we going from Velyka Novosilka, north or west? Okay, so here we can see Velyka. There's not a lot west to go into. I do think the Russians will push west up to Velne Pole here. This little town, or Shevchenko, whichever one you want to pick, because this is where the last Ukrainian fortification in this region is. I mean, they might have built some more stuff up here. I'm not 100% sure, but outside of Velyka Novosilka, this is the last fortified line, which is already kind of compromised from the north that the Russians can cross here. But Velyka Novosilka is now captured. The Russians will use this to expand out, and they should follow this road down here while putting more pressure on Holyai-Polye. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I imagine it's going to be just sort of a gradual thing. But more importantly, they want to progress north and cut this highway that leads into Constantinople and Ulaki here. Ulakli. So north would be my prediction. I think they're going to follow this river all the way north, kind of cap this entire area, put Andrivka and all of these settlements into a encirclement from the north and the south. I'll actually make some polygons for my next live stream and show you guys what I'm talking about here. But they're going to advance out here and then come down, cut the road here, advance from here, cut the road here. This entire area is cut off. The Russians just do the same thing. It's been their plan the entire time, and and I don't see why they would change it now. All right. Do you agree that Russia needs to take Odessa, or else they've lost to NATO then? No, absolutely not. No. Hey, can you stop snoring? Can you stop snoring, buddy? I'm doing a live stream. Let me see. No, I do not think that the Russians need to take Odessa. I think the Russians would like to take Odessa. I think having the Black Sea to themselves, on the northern end at least, would be beneficial. I could definitely see it happening, but no, I don't think it would be a loss. I think that what we're seeing right now is already a win, right? I've never thought that particularly the territory mattered. I think that the new global reality that has been set by this conflict is really the win for Russia. Russia has endured all of the sanctions. That was the big win. The Russian economy surviving a nuclear sanction package from the hegemony, that's the victory. That right there is the victory. I know people are really overwhelmed with this idea that there has to be some like monstrous geographical victory where the Russians capture a bunch of territory. But I mean, this addition to their country is bigger than most countries ever see. I mean, like in my lifetime, I don't know a lot of countries that have grown by this much, right? I've been alive in a very stable period of time, I would say, but this is crazy. This is multiple U.S. states that are being added to the Russian Federation. So already territorially speaking, I mean, they have a lot of the rare earth metals. A lot of the economy of Ukraine is in the east. That's been achieved. I don't think that they're going to stop with pushing east of the river. So I do think that there's more to capture there. But in terms of Odessa and Nikolaev, I'm just not 100% sure. And then, so, you know, they've captured all of the economy, a lot of the agricultural land. There's not a lot going on here. Obviously, they would like to capture this, but you could get a potentially very, very lucrative deal. Putin could, by saying that basically they're not going to go for this. They have no, they'll let Ukraine have access to the Black Sea, whatever's left of Ukraine. And that would be a win if they could get something very, you know, profitable on the back end. Massive sanction relief, something like that. I don't know. Again, I don't think negotiations are going to happen. This seems like capitulation and surrender talk more than anything else. So time will tell. But for right now, I don't know if they need to take Odessa. I mean, I don't know if they're going to try to go for Odessa, but I don't think it's necessary to claim this as a victory. Can NATO desert storm Russia out of Ukraine? No. What do you mean? What happens? What happens when that first U.S. missile strikes a Russian command post? Or, you know, what happens when that first U.S. troop comes into contact with a Russian troop somewhere in Ukraine? Nukes start flying. So no, there is no possible way. First off, you can't desert storm Russia because Russia isn't Iraq in 2003 that was beat to shit after the U.S. went in once. You know, in Kuwait, and then, you know, and messed them up. And after Iraq had been in a decades-long attritional conflict with Iran, which, by the way, we were funding and supporting to weaken Iraq, that's been going on for a long time, right? We were whittling down Iraq for a long time, and then we went in and we made Desert Storm look like some beautiful operation that went off without a hitch, when really it was just the U.S. absolutely shit kicking. It was like Conor McGregor going out and fighting some drunk homeless dude on the road, right? Like, the guy has never trained. He's hammered. He can't stand upright. You know, Iraq didn't have air defenses, did not have strong communication networks, did not have easy logistics, and were completely outgunned and technologically inferior by decades to the United States. So yeah, the U.S. kind of shit kicked Iraq. There's no possible way they could do that to Russia. One, for nukes. Two, because Russia is an organized country that has, you know, the ability to defend itself. Right, especially in Ukraine. Now, if we're talking about, you know, a Russian position isolated away from Russia, could the U.S. potentially do some operation to remove that? Yes, but again, nukes would fly, so no. Thank God I'm only 24. Yeah, I'm only 26, bro. Right there with you. Except you were born in 2000, which is icky. I'm just looking through questions, guys. Russia could send some liquefied natural gas to help Moldova, to help Transnistria. Of course, they have to get Moldova. No, Moldova's not going to agree to that. And by the way, talking about Odessa, if Odessa is ever not captured because of a deal, it will have to include security guarantees for Transnistria. So that would be part of that deal. Escape from the Hague, you look 70, is what this guy says. And look at his picture. It's John Bolton. It's funny. Question: what do you think of Trump pausing or funding pausing funding for Ukraine? It's just for developmental projects. So all of the NGOs in Ukraine are the ones that are scared. All of the very vocal groups that get a lot of money to keep doing shit in Ukraine, those are the groups that are worried because their funding has been suspended for 90 days because that was a lot of the Democrats stuff. NGOs are how the US controls foreign politics, right? Georgia is threatening to be sanctioned and stuff right now because they've done that. They went ahead and voted for that bill, whatever it was, the law that basically says that NGOs can't be in the country because all NGOs do is funnel foreign money into a country's domestic politics, right? The US has an anti-NGO law because we don't want NGOs pumping money into our or we don't want other countries pumping money into our elections other than Israel, because Israel is not another country. Israel is a 51st state, right? So APAC is a little bit different for whatever reason. It shouldn't be, in my opinion, but it is, because that's the way the world works. Get used to it. And so NGOs are the ones that are going to take the hit from this funding thing. It's not military funding. The war is going to go on. Nothing changes on that front. Self-hating Jew. I love you guys. You guys are so funny. Trump will still throw Ukraine under the bus. He's just making the right noise to appease Europe. Do you want to bet? Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. I'll bet you on that. Because Europe doesn't want negotiations and Ukraine doesn't want negotiations. So Trump can try to put the pressure, but again, Russia's position is not amenable to the US's position. The US wants a ceasefire. Trump is talking about a ceasefire, right? That's the word he uses. And that is explicitly been said by Putin and by the Russian foreign ministry and Lavrov and stuff, that a ceasefire is not a solution that they are willing to accept. They had a ceasefire. They actually had two of them, Minsk 1 and Minsk 2, and you know how that went. The West did not abide by those at all. They, in fact, used those to strengthen the Ukrainian military and delay the conflict until Ukraine was ready, hence what we have now. So if the Russians go for that, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my entire life, and they deserve to lose if they go with that. Calibrated. Will Trump put tariffs on Russian uranium, in your opinion? He might, but what is that going to do? Uranium is not a bulk of the Russian economy. He can put tariffs on it, and then countries all around the world are going to be very upset that their nuclear reactors that Russia has set up are not able to get uranium at the price that they like to get it at because of tariffs. So again, it's just every single economic sanction and tariff is a double-edged sword that the U.S. is not really in a position to take those cuts. The U.S. does not want another thing that Trump is talking about is trying to get OPEC to crash oil prices to hurt the Russian economy, which would also hurt OPEC Plus's economy, because OPEC needs the gas at a higher price than Russia even does. So there's really no solid strategy going forward. And this is why I'm telling you guys, unless some massive concessions are made, I don't see how negotiations are going to happen. Let's see. I saw a question. Would you say that Trump has any leverage over Russia or no? What about those refinery attacks? Is a bunch of PR cope? Well, no. So the PR attacks do have an impact. I mean, the refinery attacks do have an impact. But the thing you got to remember is Russia is basically a nation built by oil, right? So they have an incredible means of maintenance and reconstruction and the ability to fix up their oil industry very quick. So yes, there is damage, but the damage is not enough in a short enough period of time to have a significant impact on Russia's oil export industry and their ability to transport oil to their markets, right? And Ukraine isn't hitting any refineries further than like 400 or 500, 600 kilometers from Ukraine itself. So It's flashy. It makes a lot of fire. It pushes the envelope because it is Russian energy infrastructure. You are directly attacking the Russian economy. It is a U.S. funded program in Ukraine, the drone program. So this is it's pinprick attacks that the Ukrainians can maintain, but also the Russians can sustain. Is basically how I would go about that. Good question. What do you think of Kellogg's idea of bringing down oil? This is what I just talked about. Yeah, it won't work. It's such an unrealistic thing to expect nations to do at this current moment. Did you go to any secondary or post institution, college or university, considering that the deep wealth of knowledge in terms of geopolitics? Yeah, I went to college for a couple of years, but it wasn't for me. I realized that unless I'm getting a nursing degree, which I'm not doing, or a doctorate of some kind, or an engineering degree, a job that requires you to have that higher education, just the paper, because you're never really going to use it. So I went to college for a few years, but no, I didn't really do much with geopolitics. I'm just autistic, and I have a memory that works very well for categorizing and identifying specific patterns and information. So I'm just good at making maps and doing geopolitics, and I decided to make a YouTube channel. College is a scam, in my personal opinion. If you are a motivated and intelligent individual, you can learn everything that you learn from college and so much more that you don't, without the bias, without the political, there are a lot of really, really stupid people. And I had very, very stupid professors that were teaching a subject that they almost seem to not have a clear understanding of. And I just basically said to myself, this is a waste of my time. And it was, because my life is going swimmingly, and I did not waste 4 years going to school. I wasted 1.5 years. I'm sorry if I missed some of your guys' questions. Scott, yeah, I was studying the Torah. Come on, bro. Scott isn't autistic, he's Jewish. Oh man, it's gonna be really easy to switch sides if I want to, though. You guys have already got my number, apparently. Oh man, you take control of your own education. Exactly. 8 to 10% of Russians' GDP is energy. About 4% is oil. Yes, but they have the infrastructure and the manpower to fix any of the strikes that happen. So what I'm saying is that hitting these sites is not going to do a overwhelming amount of damage. Rabbi Scott, Shalom Scott, nice. Is there another Orishnik missile strike soon? No, I would not be. I didn't think there should have been a first one. The first Orishnik strike seems to be just a demonstration that they have the weapon and that the INF treaty no longer matters to them. They are willing to use intermediate range ballistic missiles with multiple reentry vehicles that should have nuclear weapons on board. They demonstrated it. They gave warning to the Ukrainians and the United States that they were going to use it. They launched it from deep inside of a Russian missile testing site, and it struck Ukraine without being intercepted. It did exactly what it was meant to do. It showed the world what the Russians were working on and what they were capable of implementing. And another Orishnik strike makes no sense unless it has nukes on it. And at that point, I'm not going to be doing a live stream, and you won't care about that question. So, no, I would not expect another Orishnik strike. 5S scanners, it works much better, in my personal opinion, and saves a bunch of money. Let's see. Question. What was the reason for the Russians not for the Russians to not flatten Kiev. We know that the Russians have the abilities, because what is that? What does that accomplish? If the Russians just started leveling cities, what does that accomplish? It makes the Russians look evil. It makes the West look correct in what Russia is doing. It makes the neocon job and Zelensky's job so much easier, right? Because now you have this evil big bad Russia that's coming, and they're not willing to negotiate. They're just leveling cities, killing civilians, this, that, and the other. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't attribute to the Russian goals or objectives in Ukraine at all, right? Don't let emotions get in your way. Think smart. You can think, man, they should level a city or something, which it doesn't make a lot of sense. Why? I just don't get why you would want to put civilians in that situation. Doesn't help your cause. Actually, what happens when you bomb people like that is it usually motivates them to fight a lot harder against you, because you become the enemy that is killing their families and stuff. Look at Gaza. The Russians have been actually very careful with civilian lives. There's been, I think still, it hasn't even got over 23,000 civilian casualties in 3 years of high intensity war. And that's on both sides. So that's civilians killed from Ukrainian artillery fire, and that's civilians killed from Russian missile and artillery fire. On both sides. So that's very low. 23,000 might sound like a lot, but remember that Gaza had that in like a couple of weeks. So yeah, 23,000 is not super significant, especially over 3 years, especially over a war of this size with 1,000-kilometer front line, hundreds of thousands of artillery shells fired, each year. Millions potentially each year. It's a very, very high intensity war that has an incredibly low civilian casualty rate. And that's because that's how the Russians are going about it. Oh yeah, we can go look at deep state. If you guys want to look at how a map should not look, I can let you in on that one real fast. Let's see. I don't have my keyboard in front of me. What the heck? Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. Map should not look like a seahorse. So deep state is the Ukrainian sourced map, and I was just going to show you guys some of the mapping that they're doing. So this is what happens when the Ukrainian government gets in the way of information, right? So Velyka was kind of a disaster, and then they ended up fixing it. Here, what is this? What the hell is that? What the hell is even that? Yeah, so apparently the Russians just have a massive gray zone all the way from Shevchenko all the way to Andriivka, where they have captured this fortification and then captured this area, but this is all gray zone. However that makes sense. So yeah, do the math there, deep state. Thank you guys so much. And then coming up here, there was a really bad one right here where it went like, it was like one little gray zone line that went into Novosilka right here and like stuck in. It was like, meep, meep. Don't know why that one was there. Let's see. There was a couple of really bad ones. Toretsk has been bad for a very long time. What the hell? What is that? What is this? What is this? The Russians, apparently the Ukrainians are still able to maintain gray zone. What is this? Like a 2 kilometers deep into Toretsk, into the industrial zone. This is deep state map basically saying, I don't want to update my map and show how bad the situation is. It looks pathetic. What is this? Very goofy, dude. Very, very goofy. Yeah, let's see. There's some other ones too that are really bad. That one isn't so bad. They had some bad ones in Kursk too for a little while, but it looks better now. All right. But yeah, so deep state has been, I mean, that's been deep state for some time, but very, very goofy. Do you think Russia will push for land bridge to Transnistria? No. I mean, they might, but that's so far down the road. And guys, the war will basically be over by that point. I've said this a lot of time and time again. I don't even think the war is going to progress much out of the east, right? Like, I don't think there's going to be battles for Dnipropetrovsk. There's just not going to be the Ukrainian manpower to afford that battle. And the geography is horrible for that battle. So I think most of the battles are going to take place in the east. That's where most of the war is going to happen. And then whatever the Russians want after that, whatever is agreed upon, so on and so forth, that's what's going to happen. Any updates on Gaza and Israel? I heard Israel won't be accepting a ceasefire. I don't know. I don't expect Israel to do anything, bro. I don't know why people even listen to Israel talk. They just say whatever. They're just the U.S. They're just the U.S. We just say whatever we want and then do whatever we want, and there's no consequences because we're in charge. That's what we do. So the Israelis have not yet left Lebanon, southern Lebanon, which they were supposed to do within 60 days. The government of Lebanon has extended that for whatever reason. They don't really have much of a choice. And then in Gaza, I mean, they're already tearing up the West Bank. Trump is trying to get Jordan to take some Palestinians. They're just going to end up genociding the whole region. So I would not expect a long-term ceasefire agreement or anything like that. All right, if you guys have any more questions, go ahead and get them in quick because I'm about to wrap this up. I find it difficult in some cities like Toretsk and Chasiv Yar to tell what constitutes the city and not outlying what is an outlying villages. Yeah, that's that's like most places. Like, what's the difference between Dallas and Fort Worth? Some fake line in the sand that divides a county, right? There's really no difference between Dallas and Fort Worth. You're in Dallas 1 minute, you're in Fort Worth the next, and there's no separation. You might see a little sign or something, but this happens quite a bit. I would just say anything that's connected, unless it has its own specific identity, would be like Slavyansk and Kramatorsk. Here, I'll go over to my map just so I can show you guys. So when you look at this, it's like Slavyansk and Kramatorsk are kind of connected, right? Like you could just basically drive and it's almost like the city doesn't end. You just go through this train stop right here and then you're into this city. I would say Slavyansk and Kramatorsk are two separate places. But then in Slavyansk, you can see how there's like a million like neighborhoods basically that are these little towns that just grew with Slavyansk as it expanded. Same with Toretsk, right? You have Yasnohrivka, you have the outlying towns all around, Sofafivka, whatever that is. So that's what I would say. And then when you're talking about Chasiv Yar, like I said, the administrative boundaries are like here. But I almost consider this part of Chasiv Yar just because it's so isolated from everything else and still connected to Chasiv Yar. Greetings from Brazil. Thank you, man. Welcome in. I don't speak much Portuguese, but I will give my best to all of my Brazilian homies. Scott, when are you getting a neck harness? I don't even know what that is. Hold up. Oh, for working out. Oh, it's just one of those like these things. Yeah, no, I just do like the rolls on the ground like boxers do, like go back and then go back again. It's funny. Greetings from Sweden. Speak any Swedish? No, I don't. It seems like a very niche language for me to learn where I'm at. Question, what do you mean by we should get used to APAC? It's not going anywhere. What do you mean you should get used to APAC? It's not changing. Like NGOs in the US are illegal except APAC, right? Because Israel is again the 51st state. Their national security is our national security. Their geostrategic interests are ours. And we pretend like they're not, but they absolutely are. And that's why they get away with whatever they want, is because they are under the full protected umbrella of the United States. They are our forward operating base. So APAC is not really a foreign NGO. In my opinion, it is. It should be illegal. I don't think APAC should be around. I don't think that there should be any money from foreign countries going into our politics. In fact, I don't think there should be a lot of money going into politics in general. Not realistic, not how the world works. But yeah. Bro. Name, you got to stop spamming, bro. I already answered your question, dude. If you don't stop spamming, you're gonna get muted. Question, is it more beneficial for Russia to take all of Ukraine or give Western Ukraine to Romania, Poland, etc.? Wouldn't it expand NATO in a sense? I mean, the population there is just so agitated against Russia. They're not Russian. There's no cultural similarities. You could take it if it happens, and the Russians just end up getting it. I'm sure they're not going to complain about it. But in terms of the Russian want to go into that region, I don't think it's there significantly. So you're technically right, but I mean, NATO expansion is not really the issue anymore. You know, NATO has already expanded as far as it possibly can go, barring Ukraine. The Russians invaded Ukraine because they didn't want Ukraine to be used against them in the future, right? And suffocate them. There's oil pipelines that go through Russia. A lot of Russia's interests are in Ukraine. So, yeah. All right, Name, here we go. The frontline movements are really irrelevant. The overarching politics is the real issue, i.e. at a strategic level, not a tactical level. Do you agree? I mean, yeah, that's what I've said the whole time. I just said that the war in Ukraine is not the actual war. Russia surviving the geostrategic implications of sanctions and the economic war are much, much more important than what's happening on the ground in Ukraine. The ground in Ukraine is just the more dynamic and updatable aspect of this conflict. If I just talked about the geostrategic interests and implications of everything, this video would be over in 5 minutes because I wouldn't have anything to talk about week to week unless something happened. Okay, I answered your question. There we go. Russia will take only the 4 annexed territories. Very possible. They're already into Kharkov, and they're pushing into Kharkov more, so that would be 5. NATO expansion to Israel. Well, it's the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, so that doesn't really make much sense for Israel, but they're already in NATO. I don't. What do you guys mean? They're the United States. They are already NATO. Just like Sweden and just like Finland were already NATO, guys. That was not a NATO expansion. Those countries, the second war happens, fall on the NATO side. They are not aligning with Russia, and they are not maintaining neutrality. Their armies are already NATO compatible, right? They train with NATO. They do drills with NATO. They're a NATO country, and it's crazy how they were accepted in like 5 minutes flat, because they were already NATO. April 20th, Easter is being suggested as a possible ceasefire date. It's so weird, just random days. Easter, fuck it. how much would the front line change by then? Probably not terribly. I mean, that's 3 months. So about as much change as you've seen over the last 3 months, I would say, maybe a little bit more. So sort of like think about Ugledar to Kharkov and Pokrovsk, like that chunk. Put that into the Dnipropetrovsk region. I mean, the front line could change significantly from our perspective, but probably not a ton in just a couple months. DeepSeek really ruined the whole AI sanction narrative. Tech barons are going to cry tonight. Any predictions on the coming repercussions with regards to the China policy? This is just, again, you're going to continue to see this stuff, the back and forth. The AI wars are a huge frontline, I would say, for future economic warfare, basically. Just like it during the 1980s, the Soviets and the United States had their space race. Similar sort of thing where these countries are going to start dumping a ton of money into AI. I'm not a huge AI guy. I don't spend a lot of time reading about it. So I'm really not the person to talk on this with a lot of, experience or expertise. I would hate to lead anybody in the wrong way. So AI is just not what I pay attention to a whole lot. Do you speak fluent Spanish considering you live in the... I speak pretty good. Well, I can understand Spanish very well. Speaking it, not so much. I took 2 Spanish classes. So, I mean, I can read Spanish like very well. Like when I'm out and about, Spanish is no problem for me. And when I hear it, I can usually pick up on enough of it. I know more Spanish than I know Russian, and I've been trying to pick up on my Russian and a little bit. So what did I train today? Back. I had a good back day, but I was squatting and I was doing 315 and I went for 12, and on my 12th rep, not during back day, but during my leg day, I went down and my tailbone like popped kind of, and like flexed weird. And so now my tailbone's been hurting and I haven't been able to go in on legs or anything super hard, which has sucked. Just the money for reconstruction programs. So NGO stuff, not weapons at all. Has nothing to do with weapons. Scott, do you think we'll get to use an AI drone? Do I think or what? Are they will get to use an AI drone before the war is over? I think that there are already AI drones out there. I think they're in their final stages of development, and they're probably being used as we speak. All right, I gotta do one more question. I'll get out of here. You gotta work on the name of pronunciation of Ukrainian city names. Yeah, I'll get right on that, dude. Here, let's be the last question. Gains in Kharkov Oblast being swapped for Kursk. They will keep it where the front stops, or will Russia annex the whole oblast? I think that they're going to annex most of the east of Ukraine. I think that just makes sense at this point, especially. And as we can see them pushing into Kharkov, and if they push into Dnipropetrovsk, that's basically going to seal the deal, in my opinion, of what the Russians are going to try to achieve. All right, guys. That is going to wrap it up for me today. Thank you all so much for joining me. This has been episode 132 of Calibrated with Scott. I will be back here on Wednesday evening for my late live stream, so please tune into that. Thank you guys so much for being here. Please follow me on my Telegram and Twitter, and click subscribe if you have not. A simple like, a simple comment, all of that stuff helps me out tremendously in the algorithm. If you don't like me, or if you don't like my religious beliefs, apparently, according to most of you, deal with it. That's the situation, okay? Everybody, you have a great day. I will see you on the next one. Bye.